After another grueling day that stretched late into the night, the young office worker returned home at 12:47 a.m., drained in both body and mind. The first thing he did was crack open a can of beer, letting the cold bitterness wash away just a fraction of his exhaustion. His small apartment was silent, the kind of silence that felt heavier after endless hours spent under fluorescent lights and the constant pressure of deadlines. He dropped down in front of his TV, still dressed in his work shirt, its wrinkles reflecting the long battle of the day. As he sat there, he acknowledged the truth he lived with every day: he was just another corporate slave, trapped in a job that demanded everything and returned almost nothing. As the leader of his project team, the weight of responsibility never left his shoulders, even after work hours. This was his life at an exploitative company, an existence that felt more like a slow-burning hell than a career. In that bleak routine, he had only one small refuge: sipping his beer while sinking into a game controller, losing himself in digital worlds where his choices mattered and the stress didn't follow. For a brief moment, he could pretend the real world wasn't closing in on him. This was the nightly ritual that kept him going, even as his exhaustion grew deeper with every passing day. As the tension of the day eased from his shoulders, he immersed himself fully in his nightly escape. His favorite game, Brave of Kingdom, filled the screen, a fast-paced action RPG where a lone hero carved through waves of armored enemies with sweeping, powerful strikes. The bright chaos of battle felt worlds apart from the monotony of his apartment, and he welcomed it. He loved the simplicity of it. The game didn't demand thought or strategy, it rewarded pure momentum. Cutting through hordes of enemies by himself was exhilarating, a far cry from the stifling teamwork and constant pressure that consumed his real life. As he played, his expression sharpened with focus, the controller steady in his hands. What truly thrilled him were the boss battles. Each villain loomed larger and more menacing than the last, and defeating them offered a satisfaction he could never obtain from his thankless job. The more he played, the more the game pulled him in, numbing the fatigue clinging to his body. Out of all the titles he enjoyed, this one remained his favorite, his reliable retreat after another day in the corporate grind. As he played deeper into the night, the game carried him into one of its most notorious challenges: the confrontation with Zorg, the fearsome general who stood as a towering wall in the hero's path. The villain's cold, stern visage filled the screen, half-shadowed as if carved from darkness itself. His heavy armor and massive weapon radiated an oppressive strength that made the hero seem almost insignificant before him. To the young man, this battle was always a highlight. Zorg wasn't just another foe, he was the infamous mid-boss who crushed countless players, the one whose sheer power shattered any sense of balance in the game. Overcoming him demanded precision, timing, and a stubborn determination that few possessed. That difficulty, combined with the thrill of surviving his brutal attacks, made victory immensely satisfying. As the hero on screen charged forward, he leaned in slightly, his eyes alert and focused. Sweat gathered at his temple, not from fear but from the excitement of the challenge. Zorg was a test he welcomed every time, a place where effort actually felt rewarded, unlike the endless expectations of his real-world job. For him, defeating this overwhelming foe was more than gameplay. It was a moment of triumph he could claim for himself. Still riding the thrill of the difficult boss fight, he reflected on why games like this captivated him so deeply. There were countless ways to overcome a challenge like Zorg. You could grind endlessly, pushing your level higher and higher until brute strength guaranteed victory. Or you could take the opposite approach and rely on clever tricks, exploiting every mechanic and opening the game aloud. If you preferred spectacle, you could even rally the in-game villagers into a rebellion and turn the battlefield into a chaotic uprising. Each method offered its own flavor of satisfaction, and he appreciated them all. Great games, he thought, always gave players room to surpass themselves in their own way. That idea brought a small, contented smile to his face as he relaxed, letting the lingering tension from work finally ease. He leaned back slightly, still holding the controller. Time to blow off today's stress again, he murmured to himself, feeling a familiar spark of excitement. With a faint grin, he decided that tonight he would release just a little more chaos into the virtual world. But just as he prepared to dive fully into the game, something on the screen, or perhaps something in the room, caught his attention. His eyes widened slightly, surprise interrupting his easy mood. Just as he was ready to plunge deeper into the chaos of the game, something unexpected appeared on his screen, a stone room rendered in unfamiliar detail. He blinked in confusion, tightening his grip on the controller. This wasn't any location he recognized, and the sudden shift felt too abrupt to be part of the usual gameplay. What kind of screen was this? Where was he? He leaned closer, eyes narrowing as a figure stepped into view. At first glance, the character didn't match the hero he usually controlled. The posture, the heavy armor, the imposing presence, none of it aligned with the protagonist's design. Then a cold realization struck him. He knew that silhouette. That powerful frame, draped in a heavy cape, that unmistakable long hair falling over a warrior's back. It was Zorg. But the perspective was all wrong. Instead of facing the villain as the hero, it was as though he were seeing through Zorg's own viewpoint, watching him move through a secluded room of stone. A mix of astonishment and unease washed over him. Was this a glitch? A hidden event? Something the developers hadn't announced? Even he, a dedicated fan who knew every corner of the game, had never encountered anything like this. Still seated on the floor, he stared at the screen with uneasiness creeping up his spine. This wasn't normal. If the game was malfunctioning in such a bizarre way, he might have to contact the developers. Yet he couldn't bring himself to look away. Something about this strange moment held him, as if the game had suddenly crossed a line he didn't know existed. As he stared at the strange new scene on the screen, the sense of unease grew heavier. But before he could piece together what was happening, the world around him seemed to slip. In an instant, the room vanished. The soft glow of his television, the weight of the controller in his hands, even the floor beneath him, all of it disappeared into a vast white emptiness. He found himself suspended in a blank void, sitting as if still in his living room, yet with nothing around him to anchor his senses. His breath caught, confusion rising sharply in his chest. His eyes widened in shock. What was this? How had everything simply vanished? A strangled sound left his throat, part disbelief and part fear. Nothing made sense. No glitch, no bug, no hidden event in the game could possibly explain this. The emptiness seemed to stretch infinitely in every direction, swallowing all familiarity without offering a single clue. "Hey," he whispered, his voice small in the vast silence, as the realization began to take shape. Something impossible was happening. The whiteness around him suddenly fractured into darkness, swallowing the emptiness all at once. A dizzying sensation rushed through his head, as though the ground had vanished and gravity had forgotten him. Panic fluttered in his chest. What is this? What the hell is happening? The void felt alive, shifting and warping with chaotic texture, neither solid nor empty. His thoughts raced as he tried to anchor himself, but confusion only deepened. He couldn't tell if he was falling or floating, or if the world itself was tilting around him. Had he hallucinated? No, he hadn't drunk nearly enough for something like this. Nothing made sense. The sudden change, the disappearance of his room, the uncanny visuals that twisted before him, none of it resembled any glitch he had ever encountered. Fear crept in through the cracks of his confusion. If this wasn't a dream and wasn't his game malfunctioning, then what was it? He opened his eyes again, the world still rotating around him. His stomach tightened as he whispered to himself, "I don't understand what's happening." His dizziness deepened until even the darkness around him began to twist. His senses blurred, slipping out of focus one by one. The overwhelming confusion that clouded his mind grew heavier, as though his very awareness were dissolving. Colors, sounds, and the faint sense of a body he no longer felt connected to all began to fade. Something was terribly wrong. The void pulsed, and he felt himself falling, or drifting upward, he couldn't tell which. His limbs floated weightlessly, powerless to resist whatever force was pulling him away from the world he knew. Panic flickered inside him, but even that emotion weakened as his consciousness dimmed. My senses, they're fading. His thoughts thinned into fragments. The feeling of being unmoored intensified until everything around him blurred into a streak of bright, overwhelming light. Silence followed. Then, in the faintest whisper, as if reaching him from a distance he couldn't fathom, a voice spoke, hesitant, uncertain, yet addressed directly to him. My lord. The words echoed into the fading remnants of his awareness, and the void swallowed everything else. A distant voice echoed through the fading haze of his consciousness, tugging him back toward awareness. As the blinding light gave way, shapes slowly took form, a massive stone fortress rising beneath a clear sky, its towers cutting sharply against the morning light. The voice called again, urgent this time. Lord Zorg. The title jolted something inside him, though his mind was still clouded. He felt softness beneath him, the weight of blankets draped over his body. A gentle rustling filled his ears, followed by another plea. Please, wake up. He stirred weakly, a muffled groan escaping him. Everything felt wrong. His bed wasn't this large, nor this luxurious. His sheets weren't embroidered with ornate patterns. And yet, as he shifted, the unfamiliar warmth and the scent of the fabric surrounded him unmistakably. Someone kept calling out for Lord Zorg, their insistence bordering on desperation. Still half asleep, he muttered nonsense under his breath, words shaped by habit rather than awareness, complaints about deadlines, deliveries, anything to justify sleeping just a little longer. Outside, a small bird perched near the window chirped softly, as if greeting the morning. As his vision cleared further, a presence loomed beside the bed, firm, authoritative, and undeniably real. A woman stood there dressed in an elaborate military uniform, her posture rigid with discipline. Her short blonde hair framed a stern face marked by a distinctive eye patch, and her armor glinted in the morning light pouring through the window behind her. She regarded him with a mixture of impatience and concern. He blinked up at her in confusion. Delivery. He had mumbled something about deadlines half asleep, but she clearly interpreted it in an entirely different way. Her brow creased slightly, puzzled by his words. "I don't understand what you mean," she said, her tone steady but tinged with worry. "But regardless, you will be late to the military council." The words hit him like a splash of cold water. Military council? His mind raced. The uniform she wore, the stone castle beyond the window, the ornate bed he had awakened in, all of it began to align in a way that made his stomach tighten. This wasn't his apartment. This wasn't his world. And the woman wasn't addressing him by his real name. She was calling him Lord Zorg. The woman stepped closer, her expression softening into something almost gentle despite the sternness of her uniform. With a steady, respectful voice, she repeated her plea. "Please wake up, my lord." Lord Zorg. Hearing the title spoken so clearly sent another shock through him. The sound felt too vivid, too real, as if the game itself had gained breath and warmth. His eyes fluttered open wider, and for a moment he could only stare at her, at the ornate symbols on her uniform, the sharp lines of her epaulets, and the polished eye patch marking her as someone important within this world. A confused sound escaped him, little more than a hoarse whisper. His vision swam, adjusting slowly to the unfamiliar surroundings, the tall stone walls, the carved pillars rising beside the bed, the luxurious blankets he found himself wrapped in. Still disoriented, he forced himself to take in his surroundings with more focus. Above him, a stone ceiling stretched overhead, solid, cold, and unmistakably medieval. When he turned his head, he found himself lying in an ornate canopy bed, the kind of lavish furniture that belonged to nobles or warlords, not to a worn-out office worker in a cramped apartment. Beside the bed stood the armored woman, watching him with steady attention. Her uniform, her presence, even the insignia on her chest, all of it tugged at memories he knew weren't supposed to belong to real life. A beautiful woman. A canopy bed. A stone fortress. And then recognition struck like a bolt. He had seen her countless times in the game. Her composed expression, the trimmed blonde hair, the eye patch marked with the sigil of her faction, every detail matched perfectly. That girl, it's her. Serena Fenrir, sub-officer of the enemy army. A recurring commander who stood at Zorg's side throughout multiple arcs of the game, cold, capable, and fiercely loyal to the villainous faction. She wasn't just a background character, she was a key figure in the enemy forces, admired by players for her design and feared for her difficulty in battle. And now she was standing only a few steps away from him, addressing him with unwavering respect. His gaze drifted over the woman before him, taking in every detail with a growing sense of disbelief. The sharpness of her long, narrow eyes, the flawless contours of her face, the military uniform that managed to be both dignified and provocatively revealing, every feature matched perfectly with the character he had known from countless hours of gameplay. There was no mistaking her. His fingers trembled as he reached toward a polished surface nearby, a small, ornate mirror resting on the bedside table. His grip tightened around the handle. No, wait, could it be? With a swift motion, he raised the mirror and saw the reflection staring back. A hard, battle-scarred face framed by long, pale hair. Cold, intimidating eyes. The unmistakable presence of a warrior feared across the land. Zorg. Staring into the mirror, he could no longer deny what he saw. The face reflected back at him, scarred, intense, unmistakably fearsome, didn't belong to an overworked office employee slumped in front of a TV. It was the visage of a warrior, a man carved by countless battles. I'm... The words caught in his throat as shock tightened around his chest. Zorg. The name finally broke free like a confession,
echoing with disbelief inside his mind.
His own reflection glared back, confirming everything he wished wasn't true. This body, massive, muscular, and powerful, was nothing like the one he had lived in moments before. Each curve of hardened muscle, each scar etched into the skin, belonged to someone else.
Someone terrifying. A handsome, mature man. A warrior's physique, piercing eyes.
Silver hair that fell over broad shoulders. Every feature matched the mid-boss he had once battled countless times in Brave of Kingdom. The more he examined himself, the more surreal it felt. His movements no longer matched the identity he remembered. Even the smallest gesture carried a weight and presence he wasn't accustomed to.
This can't be real. But the mirror insisted otherwise.
Every tremor in his voice, every shift in his expression, reflected back through Zorg's face.
He was no longer just playing the game. He was living it inside the body of the man players feared. His breath quickened, panic tightening around his ribs as the truth pressed in from every direction. His hands, massive, veined, powerful, shook uncontrollably. The weight of Zorg's body, the unfamiliar strength in every movement, the scars on his skin, all of it felt too real to dismiss. Why? Why is this happening to me?
The question burst from his mind, a silent scream he couldn't contain. His expression twisted with fear and confusion, and sweat beaded across his brow as he stared down at his borrowed form. Serena's eyes widened, her worry sharpening. She stepped closer, her voice steady despite the tension in her gaze.
Lord Zorg? Is something wrong, my lord?
He froze, realizing his panic was visible. He forced himself to breathe slowly, deliberately.
Calm down, he urged himself, even as his heart hammered. He couldn't afford to lose control. Not here.
Not in front of someone who believed he was a feared military commander.
No, nothing, he stammered, quickly lowering the mirror and turning his face away. Serena didn't seem convinced, but she also didn't press further.
Her training had taught her that when a commander faced an unexpected problem, maintaining composure was essential. He forced himself to breathe slowly, repeating the old coping mechanism that had kept him alive through countless stressful deadlines: stay calm first, panic later. It was the survival method of every overworked employee, and right now it was all he had. Even so, as he glanced again at the woman standing before him, his thoughts wavered. Serena's uniform was striking, elegant yet revealing in a way that made him avert his eyes for a second. Her posture was crisp, disciplined, and entirely unfazed by his strange behavior. She stood there in full military regalia, waiting patiently for his next command. He swallowed hard.
This woman, what an outfit she's wearing.
Despite the panic twisting inside him, he couldn't help but notice how closely she resembled the in-game model, only far more vivid, detailed, and undeniably human. The layers of fabric and armor were rendered with a realism impossible to replicate on a screen. The presence she radiated made her feel even more formidable.
Lord Zorg, she asked softly, sensing his hesitation.
As he struggled to gather his thoughts, he realized too late that his gaze had frozen on Serena again, her uniform, her posture. He hadn't meant to stare, but his mind was still reeling, and the sight of a character he once knew only as pixels now standing before him in full human detail made it impossible not to.
Serena shifted slightly under his stare, and a faint shade of pink colored her cheeks.
"If you look at me so intently," she murmured, her voice tightening with a hint of embarrassment, "I'll get a little nervous."
Her reaction jolted him back to reality.
Pardon," he blurted out, flailing in panic.
"What a terrible lack of respect on my part."
She blinked, startled by his sudden outburst.
"And no, it's fine."
But he was already spiraling internally.
Oh no, no. Looking at a female colleague like that. That's sexual harassment. Completely unacceptable for any office worker. His old workplace instincts kicked in with brutal force.
Even in a fantasy world, even in the body of a terrifying warlord, he couldn't shake off the habits drilled into him by years of corporate survival: avoid conflict, avoid impropriety, avoid giving anyone a reason to complain to HR. Given the situation, this must look awful, but still. Meanwhile, Serena fumbled awkwardly with her cloak, clearly unsure why he was so distressed, her eyes flicking around in confusion. She had no idea what sexual harassment was, nor why her intimidating, battle-hardened commander was suddenly acting like a panicked intern. In her eyes, he was Zorg, fearsome, powerful, unshakable. His mind raced in frantic spirals as he tried to make sense of everything: the panic, the mirror, the overwhelming realism. None of it fit into any normal explanation. Then, in the middle of that chaos, a thought broke through like a sudden spark. Reincarnation. The idea struck him with surprising clarity. He had seen it countless times in anime and games, the trope of someone dying or collapsing and waking up in another world, another body. It was absurd, unbelievable, and yet, it was the only explanation that matched what he was experiencing. Yes, that must be it. Reincarnation. But even as he clung to the idea, doubt gnawed at him. Could something like that really happen? He had always treated such fantasy elements as entertainment, never imagining they could apply to his life. Accepting it so easily felt impossible. Serena, watching him closely, tilted her head in concern. "If you aren't feeling well, why not rest a little?" she offered gently. Her voice pulled him back to the present. He straightened, trying not to look as shaken as he felt. "I just need a little more time," he muttered. Serena nodded, though confusion lingered in her eyes. She had no way of knowing the battle raging inside him. To her, he was still the formidable general she served, not a bewildered office worker thrown into an impossible situation. "I can't accept this so easily," he thought, pressing a hand to his forehead. The reality of being Zorg, an enemy commander feared throughout the kingdom, loomed over him like a heavy shadow. No matter how he tried to reason through it, he couldn't shake the disbelief. But one thing was certain. His old life wasn't coming back. Serena watched him carefully as his confusion dragged on. Then, as if remembering something urgent, she straightened her posture and spoke with crisp formality. "Lord Zorg, the military council is scheduled soon. If you appear like this, everyone will notice immediately." Her reminder hit him like a blow. The meeting. The idea of walking into a room full of high-ranking officers in his current state made his stomach twist. It wasn't just embarrassing, he had no idea how to act as Zorg. If he said the wrong thing, behaved strangely, or failed to meet expectations, that would cause chaos in the organization. It would delay their plans. Completely unacceptable from a working man's perspective. He clutched his head, sinking under the weight of panic. Years of corporate conditioning rushed in: don't cause setbacks, don't show weakness, don't disrupt the workflow. Serena, noticing his distress, lifted a hand to her temple. "Lord Zorg isn't feeling well. I'll reschedule." Her voice echoed faintly through the air: telepathy. A commander-class ability to communicate via magic. He stared at her, stunned. That was telepathy, right? A built-in ability from the game. Serena lowered her hand with a nod. "I'll take care of the rest, my lord. The council meeting has been cancelled." For a moment, he could only blink. She had solved the problem faster than he could even form a plan. All he could do was breathe and accept her help, trying to steady himself in this unfamiliar world. Now that Serena had postponed the military council, a small window of safety opened for him, time he desperately needed to gather information. If he wanted to survive in this world, he had to understand it. That was how an office worker endured harsh environments: learn the rules, memorize the system, and adapt. "I need to record everything about this world in my head," he told himself. No salaried worker can survive by ignoring company rules. And this world, terrifying as it was, clearly had its own rules. He took a slow breath, steadied his voice, and called out cautiously. Serena-san." She blinked, surprised by the unfamiliar honorific. "Yes, my lord?" He hesitated, then forced out, "I think I may have lost some memories. Where exactly are we?" Serena paused, studying his expression. His awkward tone, the way he avoided her eyes, it wasn't like the Zorg she knew. But rather than question him, she answered without hesitation. "We are currently stationed on the western border of the Ignarl Empire," she explained with professional clarity. "This structure is a fortress, one famed for its stability and strength. It prevents enemy invasions into the empire." Her voice remained steady, but she watched him closely, as if trying to determine how much he had truly forgotten. Farsold territory. He recognized the name from the game. It was an important border region, one associated with Zorg's role in the story as a major antagonist.
Serena continued, unwavering in her duty. This fortress belongs to the Empire's outer defensive line. You have led this position for years, my lord. Years? The idea sank heavily into him. He wasn't just a visitor. He was supposed to be this world's Zorg, the actual commander, with responsibilities and expectations. Serena's explanation settled into place piece by piece, and he moved toward the window to see the fortress with his own eyes. The moment he leaned out, the sight was overwhelming, an enormous stronghold rising above a sprawling fortified city, its towering walls dominating the horizon. He felt a chill run through him. This wasn't just any base. This is the Imperial Deadlock Fortress. In the game, players had called it the Fortress of Despair, a nickname earned from its nearly impenetrable defenses and the brutal difficulty spikes tied to it. And now, standing inside it as Zorg, he could see why. The structure was massive and imposing, built from stone thick enough to withstand entire armies. The surrounding city bustled with heavily armored soldiers and squads hauling supplies and weaponry. It's the Empire's key line of defense, Serena had said. And looking at it now, he understood completely. A fortified city with formidable defenses. Packed with elite soldiers and heavy weaponry. A crucial base within the game's progression. I see. I remember now. Bits of his gaming knowledge resurfaced, merging with what Serena had explained. This place played a major role in the mid-game chapters, one that often intimidated new players with its unforgiving battles. But now he wasn't a player. He was Zorg, the commander protecting this fortress. The weight of that responsibility pressed on his shoulders. The strategic importance of this location meant countless eyes were on him, relying on his leadership. Any mistake wouldn't just affect a game, it could trigger war, chaos, or rebellion. He swallowed hard. But there's something else. Something about this fortress, something tied to the storyline, tugged at the back of his memory, something dangerous he would soon have to face. As he observed the vast fortress and the bustling city beneath it, memories from the game resurfaced, yet they brought no comfort. Farsalt, for all its strategic importance, hid a grim reality behind its towering walls. He remembered the descriptions in the game, but seeing it in person was far harsher than anything a screen had shown him. For the people living here, life was nothing short of torment. Workers collapsed beside carts overloaded with stones. Others dragged baskets twice their weight, their faces hollowed by exhaustion. Men and women alike struggled through back-breaking labor, driven by the constant threat of punishment. Children, barely strong enough to stand, tried to help their families just to survive the day. This place, it was a real hell. Heavy taxes crushed the population. Farmers were exploited until they could no longer work. Any attempt to flee was punished. Any protest, no matter how small, was met with immediate execution. Bodies hung from gallows as a warning to everyone, obedience or death. If this territory were a company, he thought grimly, it would be the very definition of an exploitative workplace, one where managers abused their power, employees were worked to collapse, and any hint of resistance was stomped out instantly. The analogy made his stomach twist. But there was no denying it. This land was run like a corrupt corporation. And the question forced its way into his mind, unavoidable and chilling. Who governs this territory? He didn't want to finish the thought, but the truth echoed faintly from his memories of the game. A territory ruled by the wicked general, without a doubt. As the grim truth of Farsalt settled in his mind, another cold thought pressed against him, something he absolutely needed to confirm. He turned back to Serena, trying to keep his voice controlled. Serena, what month is it right now? She blinked in confusion at the unexpected question. It's May, my lord. Are you feeling unwell? May. The answer hit him like a hammer. So some time has already passed. A trembling breath escaped him as he forced himself to think. If his memory of the game's story was accurate, then. Let's see. If I remember correctly. In the game, the sequence of events surrounding Zorg's defeat wasn't random. It followed a fixed timeline, one etched into the memories of anyone who had played the campaign. In 6 months. His pulse quickened. Only 6 months from now. The legendary hero, Lyle, the protagonist of the game, would launch an assault on this very fortress. That event marked a turning point in the story. The moment when Zorg, the wicked general, would be defeated. He swallowed hard. Which means, I'm destined to die. His mind raced in quiet panic. Unlike the game, he couldn't respawn. There were no save points. No retries. Only a future written in the script of a story where he was supposed to fall. No. I can't accept that. Not in just 6 months. The image of Lyell's determined figure flashed across his thoughts. The hero who defeated Zorg in a dramatic, climactic battle. A legendary fight that players loved and that he now desperately wished had never existed. 6 months. That was all the time he had before fate closed in. The realization of his fate had nearly crushed him, but he forced himself to inhale deeply and steady his thoughts. 6 months. That was the time frame until the hero Lyell appeared and delivered Zorg's canonical defeat. 6 months until the ending carved into the game's storyline swallowed him whole. But he caught himself before panic took over again. No, it's not only 6 months. He straightened, shifting his mindset like a worker handling an impossible deadline. I still have 6 months. That subtle shift in thinking, turning despair into a foothold, was something he'd learned in the corporate battlefield. When a deadline was suffocating, telling yourself only invited defeat. Saying still created room for action. No matter how close the deadline was, the key was to prevent panic, remove the rush, and search for any opening, any chance to turn the situation in your favor. That's how a salaried worker survives. It was a coping method, but one that had saved him more times than he could count. If Zorg's defeat was inevitable in 6 months, then those 6 months had to be used strategically. He could prepare, strengthen himself, rewrite the script, anything to avoid dying as the game dictated. He tapped his chin, thinking furiously. But the moment he began to form a plan, pounding footsteps echoed through the hallway. A soldier burst into the room, nearly tripping over himself as he saluted. General Zorg. Serena and MC turned at the same time. My lord. We've confirmed, at the appearance at the north of the fortress of a grey giant. A giant? He blinked, the words cutting sharply through his thoughts. Just when he'd begun preparing mentally for the long-term threat, a short-term crisis arrived without hesitation. Serena's expression hardened. His pulse quickened. The 6-month deadline could wait. Right now, something dangerous had appeared, something that required the attention of the fortress's commander. The soldier's frantic report snapped through the room like a whip, and Serena immediately stiffened. A grey giant? Her voice trembled, not out of fear, but urgency. He turned sharply toward the messenger. What about the casualties? The soldier swallowed hard. Yes, sir. Several civilians were gravely injured. We're gathering troops as we speak. His jaw clenched. So the attack wasn't just a threat, it had already caused harm. Serena stepped forward, her eye wide with disbelief. A grey giant. The name resonated in his memory. Grey giant. He recognized it instantly. A mid-tier monster from the game, a heavy, boulder-skinned beast that appeared during hunting missions. It wasn't weak, but it wasn't supposed to be the kind of monster that could breach a fortified city either. Still, its raw strength was nothing to underestimate. Serena didn't hesitate. Send a squadron immediately. I'll lead them personally. Her determination rang through the hall, but before she could even move, he caught her words and froze. Before Serena could issue another command, his voice cut through the air with calm, undeniable force. I'll go myself. The room froze. Serena's eyes widened, her breath catching in her throat. You, Lord Zorg? Even the soldier behind her stiffened, unsure if he had heard correctly. He stepped forward, each movement radiating the authority expected of Zorg, but behind that imposing presence was his own quiet resolve. Yes. He met Serena's gaze, steady and deliberate. Eliminating any monster that appears within my territory is my responsibility. The words came naturally. Too naturally. Maybe it was the muscle memory of Zorg's body, or maybe it was simply the weight of leadership settling on his shoulders, but in that moment, he felt the truth of those words. This land, this fortress, these people, they weren't just part of a game anymore. Serena looked stunned, almost caught between admiration and worry. Lord Zorg? He didn't wait for further objections. His footsteps echoed against the stone as he turned away, muscles tightening with both determination and uncertainty. He had 6 months to survive. 6 months to rewrite his fate. And this was where it started, not with a grand battle against the hero, but with a single choice. To protect the people of his territory with his own hands. This shocked Serena and even the surrounding soldiers. They're used to the old Zorg, the lazy, arrogant superior who dumped all responsibility on his subordinates and went back to sleep. Serena can't hide her confusion. My lord. Normally, you would say you all take care of it and go back to bed. What on earth is happening to you? But Zorg stands firm. He explains that as their lord, it is not a problem, it's his duty. Rank and position don't matter. If someone can act, they should act. He cannot waste time hesitating. His resolve is clear. This time, he won't die like the Zorg from the game. He'll change his fate. Zorg arrives at the rocky outskirts where the monster was sighted, his thoughts still framed around the logic of a burnt-out corporate worker. To him, this battlefield feels no different from a toxic workplace. In an exploitative company, you won't survive. That harsh mantra echoes in his mind as he evaluates the situation. The soldiers who accompanied him freeze in terror as the ground trembles. Their eyes widen, voices cracking as they react to the rising presence ahead. A massive shadow grows behind the boulders. One soldier stammers, unable to finish his sentence. Another gulps, trembling. What? Its size. There's no way we can. The men can't even hide their despair. The creature approaching is far larger than what the term Grey Giant should imply. But Zorg's expression hardens, not with fear, but with the calm determination of someone who once fought battles of survival every day in a different world. He doesn't step back. He steps forward. As the armored giant loomed in the distance, the ground trembled beneath its steps. Zorg and Serena arrived at the front line, the soldiers instinctively parting to make way for their commanding officer. Zorg now wore his full battle armor, an imposing, ornate suit dark as obsidian, its edges carved with sharp, ceremonial patterns. A crimson cape whipped behind him, billowing with each gust of wind. Next to him, Serena kept pace, her expression tense but controlled. The two halted on a rocky ridge overlooking the battlefield. Zorg studied the creature below. "It's enormous," he said quietly, his voice steady but laced with the weight of responsibility. "Indeed, my lord," Serena answered, glancing at him. "If it reaches the city, the damage will be catastrophic." Zorg nodded. The truth was obvious, this was beyond what ordinary soldiers could handle. As he stared at the monster, his thoughts tightened into resolve. I know this better than anyone. Among everyone here, I'm the only one suitable for this task, but..." His gaze hardened, the lingering doubt flickering in his eyes. He exhaled once, sharply. And the decision settled in his chest like iron. Zorg advanced alone toward the towering creature, his armor clanking with each determined step. The monster's shadow swallowed him whole as it reared back, stone scales grinding against one another like shifting boulders. For a moment, Zorg froze, staring up at the massive jaws opening above him. Can I really defeat something like this? The doubt struck sharply, an instinct he'd never felt as a simple office worker, yet also something Zorg, the character he now inhabited, should never display. And yet, the fear was real. The giant's roar made the ground quake, loose stones tumbling down the hillside. Its hulking body stood over 10 meters tall, a lumbering beast on 4 legs reinforced by thick, jagged stone plating. Every inch of it radiated raw, crushing strength. The Grey Giant. He remembered it clearly. It was a mid-tier monster in the game, never the strongest, but still powerful enough to wipe out a squad of unprepared soldiers. And now it stood mere steps away from the fortress, its heavy breaths rippling across the battlefield like blasts of hot wind. Zorg adjusted his grip on his weapon, the metallic edge gleaming. Despite the fear twisting inside him, a hot surge of determination followed close behind. He couldn't back down. Zorg stands before the massive Grey Giant, analyzing it calmly despite its terrifying appearance. Even though its stone-like skin and iron-hard skeleton could crush a human instantly, he reflects. In the game, this wasn't such a big enemy. For Zorg, he could defeat it easily. But that was when I was controlling the character. Now he is inside that body, yet he feels doubt creeping in. He looks at his weapon, thinking, can I even fight something this huge? In the game, it was simple, but that was only in the game. Despite having Zorg's power, the fear and hesitation of a normal human still linger within him. The gray giant roars and charges. Zorg grips his sword tightly, but inside, the man controlling this body panics. It's the first time I've ever held a sword. I'm just a normal salaryman. Despite wearing the imposing armor of a warlord, his hands tremble. Still, he braces himself. The giant raises its massive leg. Here it comes. He recognizes the attack. This movement. It's the gray giant's signature stomp. In the game, this was a simple pattern. A move he had dodged countless times. But now that huge, stone-covered foot is falling directly on him. He tries desperately to remember. How did I dodge this? I think. Wait. The crushing impact is seconds away. This marks the first moment in the fight where reality hits him hard. He's not playing the game anymore, he can actually die. Normal Zorg, the in-game character, could have easily dodged this. But this Zorg is a reincarnated salaryman with no real combat experience. The impact is catastrophic. The giant's foot slams into the ground with unimaginable force, sending shockwaves and shards of stone bursting outward. A cloud of dust engulfs the battlefield, momentarily obscuring everything. The soldiers flinch, barely able to stay on their feet. Serena, watching from a distance, feels her heart drop. One moment Zorg was there, the next, the monster's weight came crashing down upon him. Her voice cracks as she screams his name, unable to stop herself from rushing forward despite the danger. The soldiers shout in confusion, completely unsure if their commander has just been killed before their eyes. The battlefield hangs in tense silence for a single, suffocating heartbeat, as everyone waits to see. Was Zorg crushed, or did he survive? When the dust cleared, Zorg stood tall at the epicenter, completely unharmed. The enormous limb that had been seconds away from killing him now hung frozen overhead. Now, Zorg stood unscathed, framed by the raining debris, like a warrior carved out of legend rather than the simple salaried worker he believed himself to be. The giant's massive foot had come down on Zorg with enough force to pulverize stone, yet when the dust settled, Zorg stood there, completely unharmed. For a moment he didn't even understand it himself. His brows tightened, not in pain, but in confusion. He felt the impact, yes, but the sensation was strangely familiar. Not sharp, not crushing, just a dull pressure, like having someone lean against him in a packed commuter train during rush hour. Compared to the suffocating squeeze of a morning crowd, the colossal stomp of the monster felt gentle. Almost trivial. The gray giant lunges again, its massive stone body shaking the ground with every step, but this time, Zorg doesn't flinch. He watches it approach with a calm, analytical stare. Yes, its appearance is terrifying. Yes, its body is built like a mountain. But as the creature drags itself forward, Zorg notices something unmistakable. It's slow. Very slow. In the game, this monster was classified as nothing more than a filler enemy, a threat only to inexperienced players. And despite being reincarnated into a world where death is absolute, Zorg can tell that the creature's sluggish movements haven't changed at all. He raises his sword, a weapon he's still unfamiliar with, yet his stance is firm, confident. Because for the balance breaker, the feared General Zorg, this thing is nothing more than a warm-up. With a single, clean, controlled slash, he cuts directly into the monster's stony hide, carving a deep, clean cut that sends huge chunks of rock scattering in every direction. The momentum of the beast's attack collapses into itself, its colossal frame breaking apart as Zorg stands firm, unharmed and resolute. The soldiers and Serena watch in shock as the massive stone monster thrashes violently. A moment ago, Zorg had rushed in alone, something no one expected, and now the creature is reeling backward, its body shredding apart from the force of a single impossibly powerful strike. Serena's eyes widen, unable to believe what she's seeing. The monster, which moments earlier was overwhelming even to look at, is suddenly collapsing, its rocky plates splitting, its limbs flailing out of control. The soldiers beside her gasp in disbelief. They all witnessed it clearly. Zorg cut the giant stone beast in two before it could even react. Dust explodes into the air as the monster's enormous body topples. The colossal gray giant, moments ago an unstoppable threat, now lies completely shattered across the battlefield, its rocky body split apart from a single decisive attack delivered by Zorg. The force of the blow scattered its pieces over a wide area, leaving only dust and fragments where the monster once stood. Serena, stunned, can barely form words as she stares at the destroyed remains. She had seen many soldiers struggle against this creature before, yet Zorg eliminated it instantly, effortlessly. Zorg floats above the battlefield, calm and collected, as if what he just did were nothing extraordinary. His overwhelming power becomes undeniable to everyone watching. Serena falls back, stunned. The massive gray giant was defeated with a single blow. The giant gray beast collapses at last, its massive stone body fracturing and crashing into the ground like a collapsing cliff. But in its death throes, one of its enormous limbs snaps downward in a final, instinctive convulsion, directly toward Serena. She doesn't even have time to scream. But before the stone limb can crush her, Zorg moves. Not hesitantly, not confusedly, but instinctively, as if his body already knows exactly what must be done. In a single blur of motion, he sweeps Serena into his arms and shields her with his heavily armored frame. The giant's limb smashes down behind him, scattering dust and broken rock, just inches away from the two. Serena, wide-eyed and breathless, finds herself pressed against Zorg's chest, stunned both by the near-death impact and by the closeness of her lord, something she clearly never expected. Zorg, meanwhile, looks down at her with his usual calm intensity, commenting internally. When the gray giant is about to die, he usually unleashes one last attack. It's a good thing I arrived in time. He speaks the words with the same matter-of-fact tone as someone reporting a routine work hazard, because to him, even this deadly situation feels like just another task he has to handle. Serena's face flushes deep red, not from fear, but from suddenly realizing just how effortlessly he protected her. The giant's severed tail crashes to the ground, kicking up dust and shaking the earth. For a moment, the battlefield is silent, only Serena's stunned heartbeat echoes in her own ears. Serena's face burns bright red. She tries to respond, but all that comes out is a trembling. Zorg's mind races as he realizes how it must look, him grabbing a subordinate, pulling her into a protective embrace while on duty. He stiffens, visibly panicking in a very corporate employee way. Meanwhile, Serena interprets his awkward silence completely differently. Her heart thumps louder. She stands up, knees still shaking, trying to act composed even though she cannot stop blushing. Zorg suddenly freezes and scolds himself inwardly, declaring that what just happened, grabbing Serena in his arms, qualifies as sexual harassment in the workplace. He stands stiff and serious, treating it like a strict corporate compliance violation, completely missing the emotional context of the moment. Serena is shocked, speechless. She can't believe this is the same Zorg who used to be cold, violent, and cruel. Her face flushes as she tries to process this new, bizarre version of him. Serena watches Zorg and finally understands what truly happened. He deliberately put himself in danger just to shield her. The realization makes her pause. For someone who used to treat others as disposable, someone she believed could sacrifice without regret, Zorg acted with genuine loyalty and concern. She recalls how he once said human lives were worthless and that subordinates could be used as mere meat shields, but seeing him trembling, worried, yet relieved she's safe, she realizes those words were just excuses spoken by the old Zorg. In truth, he has always cared deeply for his comrades, and now she sees that he has begun to care as well, far more than he ever intended. Serena, still shaken and emotional from everything that happened, gently takes Zorg's hand. Her eyes wide, sparkling, and filled with admiration fix on him as she finally voices what has been building inside her ever since he protected her. Zorg, caught completely off guard, stiffens awkwardly. He's clearly unsure how to respond, his expression a mix of confusion and embarrassment. Despite his imposing armor and fearsome appearance, he suddenly looks very human. Serena, however, is unwavering. Blushing deeply, she declares with absolute sincerity that she will follow Zorg from now on for the rest of her life. It isn't an order, a duty, or a military oath, it's devotion. Pure, overwhelming devotion. As Serena smiles up at him with bright, heartfelt resolve. Zorg freezes as Serena clasps his hand with both of hers, looking up at him with flushed cheeks and shining eyes. Her sudden declaration of loyalty clearly rattles him. Inside, he's panicking. He already knew she was cute, but seeing her like this up close, she's unbelievably adorable. Serena gazes at him with heartfelt admiration, almost sparkling, while Zorg desperately tries to regain composure. He steps back, flustered, inwardly, shouting in his usual salaryman discipline mode that workplace romances are the ultimate taboo,
trying to hide the fact that his heart is pounding. Serena, however, only grows more embarrassed and more captivated. After the tense moment between Zorg and Serena, the atmosphere suddenly shifts back into something strangely mundane. Serena, still flustered by her earlier emotions and confusion, is caught off guard when Zorg abruptly gives her a completely unrelated order, an order about cooking. He asks her, as casually as if nothing dramatic had happened, to hurry back to the castle and prepare a pot, specifically for Borgogne del 16, along with some wine. Serena freezes, overwhelmed, unsure what Borgogne even is, but she salutes and agrees anyway, panicking while trying to understand the instructions she was given. Zorg, relieved and regaining his composure, mutters that this should do the trick. Meanwhile, back at the castle, a group of chefs begin preparing a massive pot, stirring vigorously as ingredients boil under the moonlit sky. Whatever Zorg has planned, it clearly involves something very elaborate, and the entire castle kitchen is now mobilized for it. The battle is over. But now begins a different kind of chaos. The castle is buzzing with excitement as the chefs prepare an extravagant feast. The aroma of freshly cooked meat fills the air, drawing curious soldiers and servants who marvel at the sheer quantity and quality of the food. Word spreads quickly. Lord Zorg personally hunted the massive beast they are eating tonight, the Grey Giant itself. Massive cauldrons simmer with stew made from chunks of the monster's flesh, while a colossal roast turns over open flames, its juices crackling. One of the soldiers hesitates as he lifts a steaming piece to his mouth. He's never tasted Grey Giant meat before, and despite his curiosity, a wave of anxiety hits him. Does this stuff even taste good? Is it safe? He takes a cautious bite, and then suddenly freezes, eyes widening in shock as the flavor hits him, and the soldiers marvel that Lord Zorg hunted this monster completely on his own. One hesitant soldier finally decides to taste a piece. The moment he bites into it, his eyes go wide. The meat is unbelievably delicious. He can't understand what he's eating because the taste is so rich, tender, and buttery that it melts in his mouth. Soon all the soldiers dive in, overwhelmed by the flavor. As they keep eating, they notice something unusual. The more they eat, the warmer and more energized their bodies feel, almost like the meat itself restores strength. They're shocked, delighted, and completely hooked. The monster meat is a miracle dish. The soldiers devour the meat of the Grey Giant, unable to contain themselves. Each bite fills them with warmth, energy, and an unfamiliar surge of strength. Zorg watches with a proud smile. He knew perfectly well this would happen. In the game he used to play, defeating beasts would drop meat, an item that boosted the stats of low-rank soldiers. It was just a minor bonus there, but now, in this world, it works for real. The soldiers ask for more servings, amazed by how delicious it is, unaware that every bite is making them stronger. Zorg begins to realize, if he repeats this process, he might turn his entire army into an unstoppable force. After the celebration feast, Zorg finally explains his true intention behind hunting the Grey Giant. By defeating it and turning its meat into rations, he's found a way to power up the entire army, giving every soldier a stat boost, just like in the game he once played. Serena, impressed and moved, listens as he reveals how this plan reduces the chances of him falling in battle. Despite claiming it was just a practical strategy, it becomes clear that he's actually thinking of everyone's safety, even if he won't admit it openly. As she eats the massive drumstick, Serena becomes emotional. She realizes that Zorg isn't just a fearsome general, he's someone who shoulders the fate of his troops with quiet kindness. The more she learns, the more admiration and affection she feels toward him. Meanwhile, Zorg casually moves on to the next step, treating it like ordinary workplace efficiency. But Serena sees the truth. His strength, his foresight, and his hidden compassion are all far beyond what she expected. After Serena deeply impressed by Zorg's strategic mind and dedication to his troops, the two continue sharing the meal made from the defeated Grey Giant. Zorg hands her a glass of wine and casually suggests, "You should drink this with the meat." Serena, still nervous and flustered from everything that happened earlier, timidly agrees. But the moment she tastes the wine paired with the giant meat, everything changes. Her eyes widen, her body trembles. She freezes mid-sip. This simple combination, the rich wine plus the unbelievably tender, stat-boosted meat, is a flavor explosion beyond anything she's tasted. She can't even contain her reaction. What is this? She staggers, overwhelmed, as if the food is too heavenly for her senses to handle. Zorg watches calmly from behind, while Serena tries to process that her boss not only slays giant monsters, but also creates gourmet-level battlefield cuisine. Her admiration for him keeps growing and growing. Serena takes Zorg's advice and drinks the wine together with the roasted beast meat. The moment the flavors mix, she is overwhelmed. The pairing is so perfect that she nearly melts with delight. She blushes uncontrollably, sweating and smiling as the taste hits her all at once.
Zorg watches her reaction with a calculating expression, explaining that in this world, based on the game he knows, cooking plays an important role. Properly prepared food doesn't just taste good, it can boost strength and stats. Serena, however, is far too lost in bliss to focus on the explanation. She's simply enjoying the meat and wine combo like it's the most heavenly thing she has ever tasted. In the game, combining certain dishes with specific wines can slightly raise a character's stat limits. The effect is usually small, nothing spectacular. However, the wine he brought, Bourgogne del 16, happens to be one of the rare types that does grant a noticeable stat boost when paired with the right food. Serena, overwhelmed by how delicious everything is, can't believe that meat from a monster could ever taste this good. To her, Zorg's cooking skills feel like those of a master chef. She's practically worshipping the meal and him even more now. Zorg modestly insists he only knows a bit about which wines pair with which meats, but Serena is deeply impressed. Her respect for him keeps skyrocketing. Serena becomes completely overwhelmed with admiration for Zorg. After tasting his cooking and seeing his strategic reasoning, she excitedly declares that he must be the reincarnation of a god of war, praising his brilliance with teary-eyed devotion. Meanwhile, Zorg, who internally knows he's actually just a reincarnated salaryman, remains awkward and confused by her intense respect. Trying to steer the conversation back to practical matters, he casually mentions that the wine she's drinking is quite rare. He asks her not to spread that information around too much, treating it as something like confidential intel. Serena immediately agrees, fully obedient and flustered, while Zorg tries to keep the situation under control even as she continues to idolize him. Serena is completely overwhelmed. Between the incredible meal, the wine, and Zorg's impressive abilities, she's now staring at him with star-filled eyes. She steps closer, her expression turning soft and affectionate, and whispers that the information about the rare wine should be kept just between the two of them. Her tone is almost conspiratorial, but also clearly flustered and excited, as if sharing a romantic secret. Zorg, caught off guard and sweating nervously, stammers in response. Even though he's unsure how he ended up in this situation, he forces himself to answer properly, calling it a company secret. For a moment he panics internally, but he finally nods and agrees. Yes. He's trying to maintain his professional demeanor, but Serena's intensity and closeness are completely disarming him. As Zorg reflects on everything that has happened, his salaryman mindset resurfaces. He compares his current mission to the exhausting death marches he survived back in the corporate world, and realizes that, despite facing countless dangers, he always found a way to keep going. Now, he believes the same spirit can help him defy the fate assigned to the villain general he has reincarnated as. He declares with quiet determination, living as the villain general in a Musou-type game won't be an impossible mission. With unwavering resolve, he vows, I will break this fatal destiny. Zorg is relaxing in a steaming hot bath inside the castle. After a long day of work, slaying monsters, training soldiers, dealing with subordinates, he finally feels revived. He reflects on how, even back on Earth, his co-workers called him the grumpy old man. Even as a salaryman, he was worn out. Now, thinking back on everything, he finds it unbelievable that he ended up reincarnated as a villain general in a Musou-style game. Yet, despite all that, he lets out a sigh of relief. Because right now, at least, he can finally relax. Zorg relaxes in the bath, reflecting on how surreal his situation is. Just a short time ago, he had been nothing more than a tired, ordinary office worker, someone others even called the grumpy old man because of his gloomy personality. But now, his body is completely different. Muscular, scarred from countless battles, and even sporting a rugged beard. He realizes that he has literally become the character Zorg, a feared war general from the Musou-style game. Even though he still thinks like an overworked salaryman inside, outwardly he is now a completely different person, a powerful villain with a terrifying presence. Zorg reflects on his situation while relaxing in the bath. Although he was once just an ordinary office worker, he's now literally transformed into the villainous war general Zorg, complete with a muscular, battle-scarred body and a very different appearance. He remembers the game's plot. Zorg is an intermediate boss who stands in the hero Lyell's way and is destined to be defeated within 6 months. Even if he tries to act like a good person now, there's no guarantee the hero will spare him, since this world still follows the game's script. Aware of this danger, he realizes he must think carefully about how to change his fate. A woman, most likely Serena, appears wrapped only in a towel, clearly just having stepped out of a bath. She stands shyly but warmly, cheeks flushed, giving a gentle smile. Her posture and expression suggest she's feeling embarrassed yet happy to be seen like this, possibly intending to surprise or approach Zorg in a more personal or intimate way. Zorg is enjoying a quiet bath when he suddenly sees Serena entering the bathing area, wrapped only in a towel.
He is completely shocked, unable to understand why she would come in like this.
Surina seems flustered but determined, while Zorg panics internally, wondering what on earth she is thinking.
He fears this might be related to the old Zorg's behavior, since the original villain's habits clearly included some questionable actions.
Surina suddenly appears in front of Zorg wearing a very revealing swimsuit rather than the towel from before. She confidently strikes a pose and asks him, "Am I dressed properly?"
Zorg is stunned, partly because of the sudden outfit change, and partly because his mind jumps to the old Zorg's habits. He assuming the previous Zorg used to do inappropriate things with her during bath time. Surina, however, is simply trying to check if her outfit meets his standards, smiling innocently and showing no awareness of his panic. Surina is blushing intensely. She tried to look confident earlier, but now she's clearly embarrassed. Zorg panics, unsure how to handle the situation, thinking this definitely doesn't make him feel any better. Worried, he asks if he ever ordered her to dress like that before. Surina quickly denies it and explains that she only did this to thank him for saving her earlier. Zorg breathes a sigh of relief, realizing the old Zorg wasn't as awful as he feared. Surina insists that the only way she can properly thank Zorg is by washing his back, since she feels indebted after he saved her. Zorg, flustered but trying to act composed, tells her she doesn't have to. He is clearly overwhelmed by this situation. Surina stays determined and kneels behind him, ready to help. Meanwhile, Zorg internally reflects on how, as a former salaryman, he believes in making full use of capable subordinates, even if this situation feels extremely awkward for him. Surina is washing Zorg's back in the bath, trying her best to help him.
Zorg is extremely tense and unsure whether this situation is appropriate, but Surina stays close, devoted and eager to serve him.
She asks if there's any part of his body she should clean next, looking up at him with sincerity. Zorg, overwhelmed, freezes when she leans in, his mind racing as he tries to process her loyalty, closeness, and boldness. Surina is washing Zorg's back as a way to thank him for saving her earlier. Zorg, who still thinks like an overworked salaryman, is overwhelmed and confused by her closeness and the situation in general. He struggles internally, trying to understand why she is acting so affectionately and why the situation feels so intense and embarrassing.
Surina, noticing his reaction, asks if something is wrong.
Zorg tries to stay calm and replies that everything is fine, even though he's extremely flustered on the inside. Surina continues washing Zorg's back with gentle, almost exaggerated care, completely absorbed in her task. Her touch is soft and deliberate, and Zorg, despite his hardened exterior, can't help feeling overwhelmed by the unfamiliar kindness.
Her peaceful smile makes the moment strangely intimate, and Zorg finds himself confused. Why is she being so considerate to me?
He compares this to his past life as an overworked salaryman, where no one ever treated him kindly, and he struggles to understand her sincerity. Meanwhile, Surina remains focused, happily serving him, unaware of the turmoil she's causing in his mind.
Surina grows confused and emotional as she secretly watches Zorg. Even though she's been openly tempting him, Zorg remains completely calm, respectful, and composed. She wonders why he doesn't simply try to claim her like the cruel, lust-driven brute who only saw her as an object. Zorg in past would have immediately acted on his desires and attacked her like a beast. But now Zorg, the one with the soul of a former overworked office worker, treats her with unexpected respect and restraint. This makes Surina question everything she believed. He isn't ignoring her, he's being considerate, and the difference shocks her deeply. Surina keeps washing Zorg's back, completely absorbed in the moment, while he grows increasingly tense and conflicted. She wonders why he suddenly became distant and serious after being so calm earlier, confused by his sudden change in attitude. Zorg, overwhelmed by the intimate situation and exhausted from the long day, decides it's best to stop. He gently tells Surina that they should finish for today, trying to keep things from escalating any further. Surina, surprised and a bit confused by his reaction, stops what she's doing and looks at him with wide eyes. While helping Zorg wash up, Surina suddenly loses her towel, most likely because of the water and soap around them, and she slips and falls forward, directly toward Zorg. The unexpected closeness shocks both of them, but Surina reacts the strongest. Her eyes go wide, panic hits her all at once, and she lets out a loud scream of embarrassment. After the shocking and embarrassing moment, Surina panics and bolts out of the bath, shouting apologies at the top of her lungs. She's mortified by what just happened and practically sprints away while still dripping wet and half-dressed. Zorg, meanwhile, is left sitting in the bath, frozen in place with a blank stare. He processes the situation slowly and awkwardly. He finally mutters, "What just happened was something." He notes internally that the whole thing was quite a sight. Once he finally gets out of the bath area and puts on a robe, he tries to calm himself down and regain composure. He's still not entirely sure what happened, but he decides he needs to refocus. He then wanders the fortress wondering where the actual bathroom is, where the toilet is. What exactly just happened? He's completely thrown off and confused, but trying hard to remain calm and think rationally. While exploring, he suddenly comes across a familiar and ominous-looking staircase descending into darkness. As he stares at it, a chill runs down his spine. The atmosphere shifts, thick shadows, eerie silence, and a foreboding presence fill the air. Then realization hits him. This place. This dark, unsettling entrance. He recognizes it from the game. Zorg thinks, could this place be? The reincarnated salaryman recalls that in the original game, this exact location is tied to something extremely dangerous. A dungeon? A hidden event? A deadly flag? Whatever it is, it's nothing good. Zorg approaches a dark, ominous room inside the fortress and suddenly realizes why it feels so familiar. The atmosphere, the smell, and the neglected condition all remind him exactly of the underground restroom from his old exploitative company. He recalls how filthy and abandoned that real-world bathroom was, so forgotten that even the cleaning staff didn't know it existed. The stench was unbearable, and being forced to use it nearly traumatized him. Now, facing this dungeon-like place in the fantasy world, he panics internally. He knows he needs to deal with it quickly, but the memory alone is enough to make him hesitate. Zorg stares into the pitch-black, ominous underground bathroom and realizes that trying to clean such a disgusting place while half-naked would definitely make him sick. He thinks carefully about what he should do, and then remembers something important. This world has monsters that eat corpses and trash, living cleaning creatures. These creatures can devour filth, waste, and anything rotting, making them the ultimate cleaners. So Zorg decides that instead of trying to clean the place himself, he'll go find one of these creatures and use it to clear the underground bathroom safely. Determined, he turns away from the dungeon-like restroom and prepares to go search for this ultimate cleaning monster. He noticed during the fight with the Grey Giant. As he concentrates, he realizes he can see a mental map, just like the mini-map from the video game he used to play. Enemy signals and magic beasts appear in his mind exactly as they would in the game. Not only that, he can also activate abilities the same way he did while playing, meaning his gamer instincts and knowledge are now real tools in this world. While focusing his consciousness, he scans the area around him and finally detects the presence of the creature he's looking for. Zorg tracks down the source of the cleaner he needs, a slime, the weakest monster in the game world. Seeing it in the real world surprises him. It looks small, harmless, and unexpectedly cute. He remembers that in the game, slimes are normally worthless, but also easy to capture. Since he needs something that can safely deal with filth without exposing himself to the disgusting dungeon bathroom, he decides capturing this slime will be the ideal solution. In this world, slimes look almost cute compared to the intimidating monsters he expected. He remembers from the game's mechanics that to capture a low-level monster like this, he only needs to use a simple ability, intimidation. So he stares the slime down seriously. Under his powerful presence, the little slime freezes in place, too scared to move. Zorg confirms this is exactly how it worked in the game. All he has to do is keep staring, and the slime becomes completely docile. Zorg has just finished capturing his first slime using the intimidation skill. He picks it up easily and comments that the method is surprisingly useful, just a deadly glare is enough to immobilize weak monsters. But then something unexpected happens. As he checks the map ability inside his mind, he notices something strange. All the magical beasts on the map have stopped moving completely. This shocks him. He wonders, is this because of my intimidation skill? How far does its effect reach? It seems his intimidation is so overwhelming that it freezes every low-level creature in the entire area, far beyond what he intended. Zorg is confused and a bit concerned by how powerful his presence is now, even when he wasn't even trying. Zorg continues experimenting with his newfound powers in this game-like world. After capturing several slimes using his intimidation skill, which paralyzes low-level monsters just by glaring, he realizes something huge. Controlling Zorg directly is insanely overpowered. Because Zorg was never a playable character in the original game, the protagonist never noticed how strong he actually was. But now that he is using Zorg's body himself, he sees his skill range is absurdly large. He can freeze multiple monsters at once without effort. His abilities are basically cheat level. Meanwhile, inside the castle, guards suddenly notice something bizarre. The soldiers stare in pure shock as the once disgusting underground bathroom is now sparkling clean. Dozens of cheerful slimes float around, proudly showing off their work. The filth, stench, and grime are completely gone, replaced by a shining floor and spotless walls. As the soldiers try to comprehend what they're seeing, Zorg arrives calmly. With a simple glance, he checks the results and nods in satisfaction. Oh, looks good. Everyone is left speechless, realizing this miracle-like cleaning must be Zorg's doing. Zorg proudly confirms that he is the one who cleaned the bath. The soldiers are shocked. Using monsters as cleaning tools is something they've never imagined before. Zorg explains that he simply captured a few slimes and threw them inside, and surprisingly, the idea worked much better than expected. The soldiers are amazed not only by the bath's cleanliness but also by the fact that the slimes remain calmly in place instead of running away. Zorg hints that there's a specific reason for this, but he hasn't explained it yet. Then Zorg calmly explains to the knights that the reason the slimes aren't fleeing is because he is holding them in place using his intimidation skill. He reveals that intimidation has 10 levels, and he used level 5, which is so strong that the affected monsters can only stay frozen in place, unable even to retreat. The knights are shocked, realizing how overwhelming Zorg's presence is. Meanwhile, Serena quietly reacts with a small O, clearly impressed. Serena, now dressed in her formal uniform, approaches Zorg with admiration. She respectfully praises him. She calls him impressionant, impressive, and addresses him as Lord Zorg. The soldiers and staff all acknowledge him too. They explain that the hygiene problems in the fortress bathrooms had been a persistent issue for many years, and no one had ever managed to solve it. But Zorg accomplished it in a single night by using slimes to clean the entire bath area, something the others consider almost miraculous. Zorg listens quietly as everyone expresses gratitude and amazement for his creative solution. Serena is overwhelmed with admiration for Zorg after seeing how he solved a long-standing problem in the fortress, cleaning the filthy cursed bath, using nothing but captured slimes and his intimidation skill. She praises him openly, her face lit up with excitement and awe, saying he's a truly extraordinary man. Her tone shows both admiration and a growing emotional attachment. Meanwhile, Zorg, embarrassed by the attention and unsure how to respond, tries to remain composed. The soldiers explain that the women who work at the fortress are extremely grateful to him, saying they could never thank him enough for solving an issue that had tormented them for years. Zorg awkwardly replies with a shy well, revealing how unused he is to receiving praise. Zorg calmly walks away while the soldiers and Serena admire him. Serena calls out to him with admiration, clearly moved by everything he accomplished. But Zorg, staying true to his humble mindset, downplays his achievement, saying he only did what had to be done and that no one needs to thank him. He reflects that, just like in his old life as a salaryman, meeting deadlines and using every resource efficiently is simply his way of life. The scene shifts to a dangerous-looking monster in the mountains, hinting that the story is about to shift toward a new path. We see Lyle, the so-called bravest hero, standing triumphantly on top of the corpse of a massive dragon he has just slain. His expression is light and casual, as if the battle required no effort at all. A title card introduces him dramatically, the bravest man, the hero Lyle. Meanwhile, his companions comment on the situation. They congratulate him on defeating the dragon, but Schubert, the sage, nonchalantly remarks that the dragon was not actually strong, making the whole fight anticlimactic. Despite this, they still praise Lyle's excellent work. This page introduces Alicia, formally presented with the title, Santa, Alicia, Holy Saint, Alicia. She is shown standing shyly, hands clasped, wearing ceremonial holy robes that emphasize her sacred role. Her expression is gentle but slightly uneasy, suggesting humility or nervousness. Alicia, still shaken from the recent battle, gathers her courage and confronts Lyle. She expresses how reckless his fighting style had just been. She worries deeply about the danger he put himself in, especially since he charged in without waiting for her support. She explains that acting alone is extremely risky, and pleads with him to coordinate better in future battles so she can back him up with her healing and support magic from a safe distance. Lyle, however, reacts with casual embarrassment rather than true concern. He brushes off her fears with an awkward showing how lightly he takes her warning. Alicia continues walking behind him, clearly distressed but trying her best to express her fears. Then Alicia earnestly asked, please, from now on, wait for her support before diving into danger. Alicia tries to explain her concern about how recklessly Lyle fought earlier. She is clearly shaken, worried that his approach was too dangerous. Lyle, however, brushes off her concern and shifts the conversation toward her support magic. He casually states that Alicia's magic is weak, speaking with a confident and dismissive attitude. Alicia becomes visibly upset, but he tells her not to worry, because in his mind, there is no one strong enough to defeat him anyway. Lyle stands triumphantly above the slain dragon, confidently declaring that no one exists who can defeat him, a statement fueled by his unwavering belief in his own strength and the power of his sacred sword, Zigafan. As he basks in his own confidence, a messenger bird arrives carrying a new letter from the king. Lyle is cheerful and relaxed, casually catching the bird as he comments that it's another message from the king. He unrolls the letter, scanning its contents with mild curiosity rather than concern. His carefree, let's see, contrasts sharply with the tension the letter is likely to bring, hinting that the king's new directive will push the plot forward and probably complicate things for everyone involved. Everyone receive a message delivered by a bird from the king. As Lyle reads it, Alicia looks increasingly uneasy. The message orders: defeat the evil General Zorg. It describes Zorg as a merciless villain who destroys towns and territories. It warns that the northern fortress, controlled by Zorg, could become a staging point for an invasion against the Ignal Empire. Because of this threat, the king states that it must be eliminated immediately. Alicia is horrified by the implications and nervously calls out, "Senor Lyle." Lyle, however, seems unfazed, almost excited, showing none of Alicia's concern, standing triumphantly on the corpse of the dragon he just defeated. A new figure steps forward, Schubert, introduced as the sage. Calm and composed, he approaches Lyle right after the message from the king arrives. Lyle, still standing over the corpse of the dragon he just defeated, greets him casually. Schubert, however, immediately asks something unexpected. He requests that the hero delay the attack on the northern fortress. Surprised, Lyle questions him, wondering why such a sudden change of plans is necessary. Alicia stands nearby, looking nervous but attentive as she waits for Schubert's explanation. The tension rises as it becomes clear that Schubert's request is deliberate and not without deeper intention. Schubert calmly explains his plan to Lyle and Alicia. He begins by acknowledging something crucial: Zorg is a formidable enemy. Even though Lyle might not lose in a direct fight, charging straight at Zorg would be a fatal mistake. Schubert insists that a smarter, more strategic approach is needed. That smarter approach turns out to be sending someone ahead first. Then he reveals who he intends to send: Alicia. Alicia herself is startled, wide-eyed at suddenly hearing her name. Schubert argues that because she is a saint, someone trusted and harmless-looking, she can approach the northern fortress safely, get close to Zorg, and carry out the next stage of the plan before the hero's main attack. Lyle seems unsure but listens. Alicia, meanwhile, looks overwhelmed and confused as she realizes she's being volunteered for a dangerous frontline task. The atmosphere grows heavier as the page ends. This is the first hint that Schubert's intentions toward Alicia may not be as noble as he makes them sound. Schubert coldly explains that Alicia can easily enter the fortress by posing as a messenger for peace negotiations. Her status as a saint makes her trustworthy, something the enemy won't suspect. Once inside, she is expected to approach Zorg directly, pretending to deliver a truce proposal. But this is only a setup for something much darker. Schubert reveals the true intent. Alicia must use Orlflare, a forbidden self-sacrifice spell. This magic consumes 99% of the user's life force in exchange for a devastating attack meant to severely damage or kill Zorg. Alicia is visibly horrified. Her eyes widen in terror when she realizes what Schubert is suggesting. He is essentially asking her to throw her life away. Lyle reacts with an unsettling casualness. Instead of concern, he seems intrigued by the idea of Alicia using such a reckless spell, showing how desensitized and self-centered he truly is. Alicia and Lyle listen to Schubert's explanation about the spell Orlflare, and the atmosphere turns even heavier. Lyle, however, reacts with unsettling excitement. Smiling brightly, he summarizes the spell in the simplest and scariest way possible: a self-destruction magic meant to deal massive damage to the enemy. Alicia, shocked, can barely speak. She understands the danger. This spell consumes 99% of the user's life force. Schubert confirms it. Yes, her life will be at risk, but insists that it's fine because they can just heal her afterward. He then adds a cruel justification: since Alicia is too weak to be useful in normal combat, this is the only way she can contribute. Alicia trembles, caught between fear and pressure, as the two men coldly frame her sacrifice as the logical, practical choice. Alicia silently endures yet another round of harsh criticism. Lyle happily praises Schubert's plan, calling it a good idea, while Schubert smugly reminds everyone of his status as a wise man. But beneath his polite tone, his true intention spills out. Alicia must prove her worth, or she'll remain nothing more than a burden. Alicia stands frozen, expression sinking as those words echo in her mind. Below, Lyle continues piling on the blame. Since the journey began, Alicia has only slowed them down, and at this point she's nothing but dead weight. Surrounded by judgment and pressure, Alicia hears her name called again, and the weight of expectation settles heavier than ever. Schubert corners Alicia with cold pressure, repeating that she must be useful or become a burden. Alicia, visibly trembling, is overwhelmed by fear and guilt as his words echo in her mind. He then asks her directly, almost commandingly, whether she will follow his plan. Crushed by the expectations and emotional manipulation, Alicia forces herself to agree. With her voice breaking, she finally answers that she will sacrifice herself gladly,
though it's clear she's anything but willing. The scene closes ominously on the snowy mountains, signaling the tragic path Alicia believes she must now walk. The scene next opens with a look into Alicia's past, showing her as a cheerful young girl holding her parents' hands. We learn she was a noble daughter of the empire, raised in comfort and surrounded by warmth and stability. Her family was deeply religious, visiting the church regularly, and Alicia herself was a devout believer from a very young age. Until the tone suddenly shifts. It reveals that on one particular day, a tragedy struck, disrupting the peaceful life Alicia had always known. The flashback turns violent as Alicia's memory reveals the true nature of the tragedy that shattered her childhood. A group of armed brigands storms the church, taking control of it while shouting accusations that the place is a nest of heretics aligned with the sacred kingdom. Chaos erupts inside the sanctuary, terrified worshippers are attacked without mercy. Amid the confusion, Alicia's parents are brutally killed, leaving her alone and helpless. The invaders, driven by fanatic hostility, declare they will purify the church, showing no remorse or hesitation. This moment marks the traumatic loss that changed Alicia's life forever, the destruction of her family, faith, and childhood security in a single horrific event. The chaos in the church escalates as young Alicia is seized and held hostage by one of the attackers. Terrified and crying for help, she struggles while the worshippers look on helplessly, unable to intervene. Just when the situation reaches its most desperate point, someone suddenly intervenes. This rescuer acts swiftly and decisively, stopping the attacker and ending the threat posed to Alicia. A young military officer, clad in imposing armor, who arrives with overwhelming force. He cuts through the rioters with absolute precision and power, instantly turning the tide of the chaotic assault on the church. He was a Unico, young official, highlighting both his exceptional skill and the impact of his intervention. This moment marks the beginning of Alicia's connection to the man who saved her life, a defining event that will shape her destiny. The aftermath of the rescue unfolds, revealing just how overwhelming the young officer's power truly was. The bodies of the attackers lie defeated, and this emphasizes that his strength was incomparable, far beyond anything the common people had ever witnessed. Even though he had just saved everyone, the entire church is frozen in shock, unable to move or speak, stunned by both the sudden violence and the sheer might of their savior. Yet among all the terrified onlookers, only young Alicia reacts differently. While everyone else stands petrified, she instinctively runs toward him, her fear overridden by gratitude and awe. Alicia, still trembling from the terrifying ordeal, stands before the man who saved her. Instead of words, he gently places his hand on her head, a gesture unexpectedly soft coming from someone so fearsome in battle. Alicia looks up at him wide-eyed, tears still clinging to her lashes, shocked, relieved, and comforted all at once. After investigating, she would come to understand more about who this mysterious warrior was. But in that moment, all she sees is a rough, confident smile on his face. A smile that leaves a deep impression on the young girl who had just been rescued. The identity of the man who saved young Alicia, his name was Zorg. As he walks away from the blood-soaked church, Alicia watches his back, small, shaken, but deeply moved. Over the years, she learns more about him. Zorg's rough personality and unyielding strength earned him many enemies, and rumors said his life was filled with endless conflict. Yet to Alicia, none of that mattered. He had been her savior. Time passes, and Alicia grows. While others feared Zorg, she prayed earnestly, her heart devoted to him. She wished, truly wished, for just one thing: to one day be able to support him. As the years passed, Alicia matured, growing into her sacred role to the point where she received the prestigious title of saint. Meanwhile, Zorg's reputation had transformed as well. By this time, he was widely known throughout the empire as a villainous general, feared for his brutality and merciless strength. But to Alicia, these rumors meant nothing. She still held a quiet, unwavering hope deep in her heart. A hope that one day she could join the Imperial Army and finally serve under Zorg, the man who once saved her life. Even as the world condemned him, Alicia's devotion only grew stronger. Alicia's hopes of serving Zorg take a sudden, painful turn. The church issues a strict order. She is to be sent to the Holy Kingdom. Because of her unwavering faith, Alicia cannot refuse. She has no choice but to obey. But this assignment places her in direct opposition to the very man she admires. As a newly appointed member of the Heroes Party, she is now considered someone standing against Zorg. And the mission given to her is a horrifying one. A self-destruction mission, intended to eliminate Zorg from within. Ironically, this task would put her under Zorg's side once more, but not in the way she had ever wished. Instead of supporting him, she is being used as a sacrificial tool to destroy him. Alicia realizes this truth with shock, her eyes wide as the weight of the mission settles over her. Alicia finally learns the full, terrifying weight of the mission forced upon her. The spell she is expected to use, Auroflare, is revealed to be a forbidden self-sacrifice magic, one that exchanges the caster's own life force to deal a fatal blow to the enemy. Her task is clear. She must use Oral Flare to kill Zorg. In the inevitability of her current situation, refusing was impossible, not because she agreed with the mission, but because the one who wields the sacred sword Zigofan, the hero Lyle, makes opposition unthinkable. Alicia stands silently, eyes lowered, the dread of her fate pressing against her heart. Alicia uncovers the final, horrifying truth behind why she cannot refuse the mission. The sacred sword Zigofan, the very weapon wielded by the hero Lyle, possesses a special ability. It forms an absolute contract with its wielder, one that binds the mind of another person and controls their will completely. Alicia realizes that this is why she cannot refuse. The sword's contract means she must obey Lyle's orders, no matter what, without exception. As the realization sinks in, she trembles. This too must be the reason she was chosen. Her expression darkens with dread, understanding that her freedom was never hers from the start. Alicia stands alone overlooking the distant city, her posture heavy with resignation. Now fully understanding the truth behind her forced mission and the sword's control, she interprets her situation in the only way her devout heart can comprehend. She believes this is a punishment that God has given me. Her words reveal a deep internal struggle. Instead of blaming the church, the hero, or the cruel circumstances, she turns the suffering inward, convinced that her fate is a divine sentence she must endure. Zorg is shown surrounded by shelves of books and scattered documents, deeply immersed in research. The image contrasts sharply with his reputation as a brutal warrior. As he flips through volumes, he thinks to himself, I need information. To prevent ruin, the most important thing is to understand exactly. His expression tightens, showing determination and concern. He is trying to grasp the truth behind the coming threat, searching for knowledge that may change his fate. As Zorg continues reading, he uncovers unsettling information about how this world truly functions. According to the books, the world follows the same rules as the game to an extent he never realized. They explain that individuals like him, born with extraordinary strength, are identified and recruited by the nation almost from birth, long before they can understand anything about the world. But the records also mention something he finds shocking. Even among the strong, some never have their abilities recognized, and those neglected individuals often end up turning into bandits. Zorg, surprised and tense, reflects on this revelation. This adjustment to the world, this system that shapes lives from birth, is something he had never heard of before. He starts to question what it truly means for their world to operate like a game. As Zorg continues studying in his office, trying to understand how this world truly works, he is interrupted by his subordinate Surina, who respectfully enters the room. Surina reports that someone is requesting an audience with General Zorg. She adds that the visitor appears to be a nun, speaking with slight uncertainty because the appearance is unusual. Her words immediately catch Zorg's attention. He echoes the word a nun, puzzled by the sudden request. Surina clarifies further, the visitor is a user of healing magic. The moment Zorg hears this, his expression changes dramatically. He suddenly sits up, eyes wide, and cries out, "A healer!" Surina, still calm, confirms that yes, the visitor uses healing magic, something like that. Zorg's shock hints that healers hold a special and significant role in this world, far more important than Surina realizes. Surina responds to Zorg's surprise with a confident smile. She assures him that a healer is not necessary for their army. In fact, she says it outright. It's absolutely unnecessary for our army. Her tone shows that she considers healers to be of little value in their military structure. Zorg, however, begins to reflect internally. He thinks about how this world, shaped like the game he knows, assigns very low importance to healers. Their role is minimal, almost negligible. The reason? In this game-like world, the protagonist, Lyle, is overwhelmingly strong, powerful enough to defeat countless enemies alone, like a Musou-style game where healing support barely matters. As Surina dismisses healers with casual certainty, Zorg's serious gaze suggests he understands the system far more deeply than she does, and that her assumption might be dangerously wrong. Zorg continues reflecting internally. Even if the protagonist doesn't normally need healing, depending on how a healer is used, their value could change completely. With that thought, he calmly gives his order, "Let's talk to her." "Let her in." Surina, visibly annoyed but obedient, replies curtly, "Oh, as you wish." She leads Zorg to the visitor, still radiating irritation. Zorg notices and asks himself, "Surina, are you angry?" And he wonders, why is that? Zorg enters the room expecting to meet an unknown healer, but the moment he sees her, he freezes in shock. Alicia. Alicia looks just as startled. Her eyes widen behind her glasses, clearly not expecting him either.